On September 4th, 2024, Jack Draper became the first British man to reach the semifinals of the US Open since Andy Murray's title run in 2012. Winning all 15 sets en route to the semis was something no one had managed to do at the US Open in the last 4 years. You could either argue that Draper had a lucky draw and took the easy route to the semis by facing only one seeded player who was just coming back from an injury, or you could look at the bigger picture to see a player who made drastic improvements to his game. How did 2024 become Jack Draper's best year yet? How did he go from being a grinder on the tour to beating multiple top 10 players and winning the biggest title of his career? And can we confidently say for sure that Jack Draper is the present and future of British tennis? When Draper was still a junior, we already knew he was special. He had the physical gifts and that rare lefty advantage, both of which helped him reach the Wimbledon boys finals and world number 7 ranking in juniors. And with his parents' involvement in his development, his father being a former executive of Sports England and the Lawn Tennis Association, and his mother being a former junior British tennis champion and coach, we knew the odds were, at the very least, good. After turning pro in 2021, it quickly became evident that there was a hole in Draper's game. Having grown up under the humid temperate oceanic climate in the United Kingdom, Draper hadn't really built any endurance or tolerance for hotter environments. And this issue clearly manifested in his first year on tour. After entering into the 2021 Miami Open as a wild card, Draper quickly retired in his first round match after collapsing on court from heat exhaustion. However, we would see flashes of brilliance for the remainder of the year, beating a much higher ranked opponent in Jannik Sinner at Queen's and taking a set off Novak at Wimbledon. Draper then had an explosive start to 2022, winning a couple of challenger titles in the first quarter of the year to break into the top 100 for the first time. This allowed him an easy entry into the big tournaments, and Draper quickly made statement wins, beating Tsitsipas in Canada for his first top 10 win before reaching the second week at the US Open. Draper finished 2022 inside the top 50, and after smashing so many youngest ever British tennis records, I thought 2023 was going to be the year that Draper established himself among the game's elite. But I was wrong. Draper was dealt a tough hand with injuries and fitness problems. He suffered cramps in his first round loss to Nadal at the Australian Open before picking up an abdominal injury at Indian Wells. To make the situation worse, a shoulder injury made him retire from the French Open and miss the entire grass court season, which would contribute to the Brit falling outside the top 100. Draper then rebounded a bit with great results at Challengers and ATP 250s, but there were lots of questions about him ever fulfilling his potential. Why? See, Draper had been hyped up quite a bit by legends like Andy Murray and also by the British Free Press. So when his development came screeching to a halt because of injuries, it was definitely a cause for concern. However, fans were still pretty patient with him, and most of the focus actually seemed to be on Emma Raducanu's struggles instead. Entering into the 2024 season, Draper said that his main goal was to become a top 20 player before the end of the year, and oh boy did he make a statement in the first tournament of the year in Adelaide, getting rid of 4 top 30 or better caliber opponents in Sebastian Baez, Misha Kecmanovic, Tommy Paul, and Bublik. Although Draper lost the Adelaide final and then crashed out early at the Australian Open, I was particularly pleased with what I saw because Draper was starting to get more depth and penetration on his shots. Okay, so after Draper's early season success, which literally ended with a semi-final run in Acapulco, he hit a dry patch with disappointing results and early round exits at the Sunshine Double and almost the entire clay season. Everyone started to hit the panic button at this point, but taking a closer look at Draper's game, we find several reasons why clay is his least favorite surface. You see, other European countries like Spain, France, Italy, Germany, and Northern Europe have a culture of clay court clubs, which isn't the case in the United Kingdom. So by default, British players are already handicapped in their development on the surface. There's also the weather factor that makes clay courts more difficult to maintain in the UK. Andy Murray, who's probably the best British clay courter, had to spend part of his childhood at the Sanchez Casal Academy in Barcelona to get more exposure to the surface. But on top of that, Draper's game has never really been suited to clay. Rallies are longer, point construction is different, balls are tougher to put away, and your movement, lateral and vertical, needs to be good, but mostly your fitness and endurance need to be S tier. And let's be honest, Draper has never been known for any of these, so it wasn't so surprising to see the significant drop in his performances. At this point, Draper figured it was time for a major momentum shift. He wasn't getting anywhere with his style of play, which was all about playing solid tennis from the back of the court. Draper needed to unlock that next level, and he did that by becoming a lot more aggressive and taking the initiative whenever possible. It paid off at the very next tournament, where Draper won the first title of his career in Stuttgart. He was levitating above his opponents the whole tournament with a staggering 88% average on his first serve win percentage for the tournament. Draper even served Tiafoe out of the court with a total of 31 aces in their quarterfinal clash. In addition to beefing up his first serve, Draper was also crunching more winners and rushing to the net a lot more than his opponents. In the end, it was a well-deserved maiden title for the Brit. But this was just the starting point. Having now hit a new career high and becoming the new British #1, it was time for Draper to show his staying power. He took down Alcaraz at Queen's, and all of a sudden, the hype was back, and the headlines painted him as a contender at Wimbledon. Well, that didn't quite happen. Draper crashed out early. Fast forward to the hardcourt season, and Draper reached the US Open semis without dropping a set before losing to Sinner in straights. Jack dealt with all sorts of physical issues on the court, and as a result, wasn't able to find his best tennis. Heck, it was a miracle he even completed the match.
He just threw up again.
After the match, he explained that nerves might have played a part in his sickness on court.
A few more nerves around, and I'm definitely someone who's, I think quite an anxious human being. So I think, when you add all that together, sometimes I do feel a bit nausea on court, and I do feel a little bit sick when it gets tough.
Looking at that Draper match, it had me thinking about the impacts of hydration on performance. Athletes go about hydration in all kinds of different ways, but SuckerPunch's hydration shooters have been proven to replenish electrolytes and key nutrients. I've been using the shooters during my workouts, and my tennis continues to improve. So give them a try and let me know how they're working for you if you're already using them. Anyways, back to the video. Draper had to retire in Japan because of yet another abdominal complaint, but he was back in Vienna to win the biggest title of his life before ending the season in Paris. Overall, Draper ended his 2024 season with a 39-22 record, 2 titles, and a massive jump from 61 at the beginning of the year to number 15 by the end. These were his best performances at tournaments. Draper's breakthrough season coincided with a truckload of improvements on all fronts and adjustments to his playing style. The lefty serve is always going to be a problem for many players, but Draper has added a lot more zip to it. The ace rate continues to hit double figures, and the first serve win percentage is at an all-time high. Draper finished the season just outside the top 10 in a number of categories, despite playing fewer matches than most of the players. But he made it inside the top 5 for the highest percentage of first serve points won all season. That's some elite company if you ask me, because it only means that Pericard, Dimitrov, Sinner, and Fritz got more from their first serves than Draper. Hurkacz, Berrettini, Shelton, Zverev, Rublev, none of these guys were rewarded as much as Draper on their first serves. At 6'4", Draper's height gives him that extra advantage on the serve, and as he continues to add more pop and that wicked lefty spin, he'll indeed become a problem for most opponents. When it comes to the ground strokes, we also see some key improvements. The backhand cross-court has always been Draper's moneymaker.
Wow.
But recently, we've seen him go down the line a lot more on that shot. Tennis Insights compared Draper's backhand shot quality over the last 2 years, explaining that bigger isn't always better. The improvement in the shot hasn't necessarily come down to speed, but rather the consistency off both wings. Still, a huge chunk of Draper's new brand of aggressive tennis has come from improvements on the forehand. The new version of Draper is flattening out balls and going for a lot more depth rather than those extremely short, loopy forehands we sometimes saw in the past. Draper has been able to dictate a lot more with his forehand, and that's something that we've seen all year. The combination of raw power on the forehand and soft hands at the net just tells you how complete Draper's skill set really is. Are you not entertained? Oh, and I almost forgot to mention how good Draper's drop shots can be. It's close to perfection at times. The most exciting thing is that despite becoming more aggressive than ever, Draper hasn't lost the ability to grind and mix up pace and spin when he needs to. But let's be real here. It wasn't all smooth sailing for Draper in 2024. Although Jack played over 60 matches, which is literally double the number he played last season, the fitness problem reared its ugly head at times. Draper has had close to a dozen retirements over the course of his career, and entering into the season, we all had questions about how his body was going to hold up. We came to the conclusion that Draper didn't have the fitness level to play the kind of tennis he needed to. With Draper being more comparable to a sprinter than a marathon runner, the solution was to shorten points for the best results. Taking a look at the coaching situation, Wayne Ferreira coming on board coincided with Draper's identity change to a more aggressive player.
You know, his message to me is I've got to be more aggressive, I've got to try and take more risk, be the one to force the play.
So it was surprising to see the pair split up ahead of the US Open this year after just 4 months of working together. Draper said that he never had a team dynamic with 2 different voices and 2 coaches. He said that he wanted to keep things simple with only one voice in the box, James Trotman. Either way, those fitness worries still exist. Draper is currently dealing with a hip problem and has had to cancel his training session with Alcaraz and withdraw from the upcoming United Cup and Great Britain's Davis Cup tie against Japan. With the Australian Open only a few weeks away, it's hard to say the extent to which this injury will affect his performance. For now, the immediate goal is for Draper to understand his body and to be able to manage his schedule effectively. Draper has recently confirmed that he's looking to step up his training plan. The 23-year-old will be using hot pod yoga, which mimics the effects of more intense physical activity and increases your heart rate, providing a challenge for the cardiovascular system. It's not the sunniest in the UK, and since Draper has struggled playing in the heat, he's keen on finding a solution. Draper is a big guy. He's 6'4" and weighs around 190 pounds. His movement isn't elite level yet, and his defense is just okay. He slides in and out of corners and can only sometimes hit great shots on the stretch, but it's not something you see and go wow about. If there's any area of Jack's game with the most room for improvement, I think the movement is right up there. Does Draper need to shed a few pounds? Maybe. His contemporaries, Alcaraz, Sinner, and many of the other guys are about 10 to 15 pounds lighter. Now, the advantage of more mass is added weight behind your shots, but the trade-off is mobility. Take it from me. Therefore, tennis players need to achieve that delicate balance for optimal performance, and this is something Draper might want to look into. On top of staying healthy, the next step would be for the 23-year-old to produce his best tennis when it matters most. Only 2 players inside the top 20 had a better percentage of breakpoint conversion than Draper in 2024. We know a healthy Draper doesn't fold under pressure, but what happens to his shot making, defense, and serve when it's the 5th set of a Grand Slam match against a top 5 player? Will his game hold up, or will it break down? A lot of work goes into having the right mentality to succeed under the toughest conditions. Winning 2 titles, reaching the semis of the US Open, snagging 4 top 10 wins in 2024, and breaking into the top 15 will be huge for Draper's confidence going forward. However, you get the feeling that he still needs some time to get used to playing big matches, because it still seems like he gets anxious a lot. Jack says he uses up a lot of mental energy because he wants it so badly. He considers it both a strength and a weakness. Going into the new season, we all want to know if Draper can rival Alcaraz and Sinner on the biggest stage, but until we see his nerve management in more of those kinds of matches, it's a wild guess at best. Some of the tennis Draper produced in Vienna was befitting of a top 5 player, as he became just the 4th British man to win an ATP 500 tournament. Draper not only steamrolled Lorenzo Musetti in straight sets in the semis, but also took down a resurgent Karen Khachanov with relative ease in the final. Prior to the championship match, Khachanov held a perfect 4-0 record in indoor tour-level finals and was also on an 8-match winning streak at the time. Draper then followed up his Vienna title with another top 10 win, this time against Fritz in Paris. Draper has the belief in the ability to trouble the game's elite, and now that he has a lot to build on going into next season, dare I say I have some bold predictions for him. But before I share them with you, be sure to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, Courtside Digest, where we share the latest happenings from around the ATP and WTA tours, and also give hot takes and opinions while answering your questions on anything tennis. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to check it out. First of all, I think Draper will break into the top 10 before the second half of the season. Less than 700 points separate him from 10th place Dimitrov, but the good news is that Draper doesn't have a lot of points to defend in the first 5 months of the year or at any major tournaments. He lost in the second round of the Australian Open last year, in the first round at the French Open, and crashed out of Wimbledon in the second round. The limited ranking points gained in those 3 Grand Slam events give him a chance to take long strides in the rankings. He shouldn't have too much of a problem making it to the quarterfinals in Melbourne, and at Wimbledon too. Remember, all of this is based on the assumption that his hip doesn't become a problem. Draper will also become the new reference for lefties. At the moment, he's the second highest lefty on tour, just behind Hugo Humbert and ahead of Ben Shelton. In my opinion, Draper is a more complete player than either of his fellow top lefties. Oh, and I should mention that he's a natural right-hander. Draper's game is well-rounded. Great serve, volley, solid ground strokes off both wings, and now he has more layers to his offense, going bigger on the forehand and stepping a lot more into the court. It's probably going to take Draper a few more seasons to adapt his game to clay because at the moment he still has relatively little experience on the surface. He had a 4-6 record on clay in 2024 and has a career losing record of 8-10. Of course, I'm expecting better results on clay in 2025, but nothing too crazy. As far as titles go, Draper is likely going to be a dark horse at Wimbledon. I reckon he makes a deep run this time, but falls just short in his title aspirations. He'll snag a couple more ATP titles, though. His best chance of winning a Masters will probably come in the second half of the season in one of Montreal, Cincinnati, Shanghai, or Paris. Historically, his best results have come at these tournaments. Unfortunately, I don't think 2025 is the year Draper wins a slam, and honestly, I hope I'm wrong on this one because it would be insane if he wins Wimbledon or the US Open. It'll be interesting to see how Jack Draper develops from here on. Looking back at 2024, Draper is undoubtedly one of the most improved players of the year, and as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be Britain's next hope for winning big.